Just to give you an overview about AspireNXT, thank you so much for joining us this morning. So AspireNXT is a digital transformation company. We have been in the industry for 12 years now. We have helped a lot of clients across India and Southeast Asia to work in sync with all of their uh, requirement in digital transformation, cloud, and also workspace transformations. So we also have our digital workspace competencies in VMware. So before we proceed, I would like to introduce you with Anshit, who will be doing the executive security briefing with us today. So Anshit, over to you.
Thanks, Nadia. Hi, all. This is Anshit. I'm one of the technical consultants with AspireNXT, and I'm going to elaborate a little about what Carbon Black is, how exactly the administrators have been finding it. I would say more, you know, it actually is about what this security is all about. How exactly are we making use of it? What challenges? How can we compete with market, knowing what Carbon Black is actually helping us to do? Moreover, a little about how exactly it functions. A simple endpoint security with cloud delivered info. So it actually tells us about what are the preferences that the market, or I would say an organization, would actually like to opt in. So what exactly Carbon Black Cloud is, it actually segregated in four parts, I would say. It's also a kind of next gen antivirus that I would say that most of the administrators are actually trying to find for their organization so that the moment that antivirus would get activated, it would actually provide the same level of security that other antiviruses would actually be doing in the market. Other than that, I would say it's one of the features is EDR, if you've heard of it. It's about enterprise detection and response. That means it's going to be a response, or I would say detecting something before an attacker could actually attack or send malware via an application, via an endpoint that's actually enrolled into your organization, or I would say any device that's being used within the organization that's actually a part and you would like to protect it. At that point in time, this actually behaves ahead of attackers. That's exactly why it detects, it responds to every endpoint of our organization or devices that we have enrolled, and it actually take actions which is quicker than others, or I would say it's actually better to know how exactly it responds. Other than that, audit and remediation feature, wherein we'll be able to assess one of the devices, which is also an endpoint. The moment we assess the device, it actually helps us know what's the behavior, how exactly is it working, what will it gonna do after it detects every, the endpoint that's actually has captured malware or is threatening the environment of the organization. So the admin can take actions against it, and that's exactly how they protect it. Now that we can move forward. Next. All right. A little about future ready protection, that how exactly it competes with other markets. As I said, this particular VMware Carbon Black Cloud has four different functions: audit and remediation, EDR, and also is taking care kind of next gen antivirus, which makes it a bundle, or I would say a kind of product. These three or four sort of availabilities within this product will not be available in any other tool, I would say, because just considering an antivirus won't help. It also requires some sort of security that detects and actually takes actions against that attack or something that's about to happen to the organization because of such attacks. So what it actually does, it eliminates the impact of that malware and it actually blocks that particular device that has been caught by the malware, or some sort of, I would say, an attack that's going to happen, or malware has been detected to the particular device, the query that we're going to run, or I would say the behavior analytics engine that actually tells us that this is the particular technique or procedure that we are using to detect what's happening in the background, which protects us from these kind of malware attacks and secures the admin as well as the organization from these sort of attacks, which is why it's kind of competitive in the market and helps us protect from all these attacks that could come up. Kind of level of an organization. Let's say if we take an example, if the organization does not use an EDI protection, when I say EDI, enterprise detection and response, wherein the attack is about to happen and they're not aware about it, there's no action taken, how exactly it follows. The path that it actually goes through, let's suppose if there's no EDR, the case would actually be, I would say, not just bad, but it would actually be bothering the organization if it impacts the ORG in any way. Limited EDR, the intelligent EDR, what's the difference between them is how exactly an organization being managed, what's the level of enterprise detection and response, teams who are actually put into site, or I would say, who are actually looking into the activities that have been happening, the employees who are using the daily codes, information, security, whatever is there on the devices, which actually needs to be protected. If the malware catches it all, what happens next is just that it'll gonna bother the data and could get compromised, which is why the level of EDR varies for the organizations, that what kind of business are they in. It could vary upon the kind of, I would say, a product that they're dealing in or a service that they're rendering, which actually tells us how should it go. A little responsibility, or I would say, kind of an environment where we would like to know how exactly the response of a security should be, how exactly should it function, what's the behavior, how exactly it travels, what's the time detection period, when exactly you run a query and you get a response from it. So the feature in Carbon Black is about a response, because technology that we actually want is, or I would say, should be fast enough so that it could actually tell us how exactly is it going to function, how soon will it be able to catch response, or how soon will it be able to identify the threats, or I would say any agitated behavior within the organization or within the endpoints that an employee is accessing, or I would say a user is accessing for the administrators, how exactly can they monitor it? So the feature also covers, as I said, about the queries that we can run. That also tells us about the TTPs, that's techniques and procedures, how exactly is it working in the background, what is the level of chain that we have reached to, and where exactly can we block this malware before it reaches an application or an endpoint. So all these threats has a chain. We call it behavior analytic engine. The engine helps us detect the number of malwares that are actually traveling while they are in, what services have been impacted, has it impacted the device already, where exactly are we stuck, where exactly have we reached, how can we block it, how are we moving forward. So all these remediations and audit takes place with the help of Carbon Black Cloud. This cloud actually covers it all. Now, in any organization, what I would say is the objective with kind of cloud or security or antivirus that we're going to put in place is that to prevent things. When I say prevent, that means we identify, we detect, we respond, and we prevent our organization from any threats that could come in. Being an administrator, the first or the foremost task would be to prevent it, but how exactly it start is by detecting it. That yes, this is the thread, this is the file that we identified, or this is an application that we are able to see, which is going to impact the data of the organization by traveling to the path that they have created already. And they try to get into that file or a folder or that endpoint that is actually being, I would say, compromised. and we get to know slowly and gradually that how exactly is it taking place. Now, when we talk about this carbon black cloud, how exactly carbon black cloud connects us with endpoints, that is through a sensor. Every device that we are going to access, be it its Windows or any other platform that we would like to enroll, and we would like to see how exactly VMware Carbon Black Cloud functions, is by installing a sensor on that particular device. Once we install that sensor, the next part is that it appears under the Carbon Black Cloud portal. We'll be able to see the number of devices that are a part of Carbon Black. Once we make it apart, we get to know that yes, there could be a threat to the specific device. If there's not, we already have EDR that's in function that helps us detect and respond to that particular issue, or I would say an insecurity that's arising. At the same time, we also will be able to detect that yes, what exactly has happened at the time this attack took place, from where exactly this website, or I would say some .com that have been sent are opening. Did the employee click on it yet? What exactly is the behavior? Where have we identified this risk to be? What endpoint is it? What platform is it? And knowing it all, we'll be able to prevent it. Now, moving forward, the vulnerability management will also come in picture, wherein we get to know a little about how exactly can it be taken care of. We take the control of devices. Now, the organization that we set up, it could be of two sorts. One of them could be on-prem. The other one could be just cloud, wherein the setup would just be on cloud. We are aware that this is how we have set up. And in situations of on-premises, there would be a separate device services server, the console server. There are many more servers that we must have set up in our organization for the devices to be a part of it. Now, when we set this up and we are aware that we are making use of it, or we are setting up any cloud in our environment, and it could be an on-prem environment when we set this up, there are securities that are already in place. Let's suppose the Carbon Black cloud is active, and we would like to know what exactly is happening at the same time. So the sensors sends a sample after every 4 hours to the console that what exactly is happening to that endpoint, and is there any insecurity, any activity that has been detected which is not legit, or an activity that has been detected within the console. When we look at it after 4 hours, when the sample would be sent, if there are any changes, we are being notified. At the same time, we also look into what's happening through those inventories of these devices that we keep in picture, or the endpoints that are actually a part of it, would tell us that yes, this could actually be a potential threat, wherein we can go ahead and make use of the EDR functionality, and we get to know and we audit and remediate at the same time, as if we assess that particular threat. And at that point in time, the action should be taken. If there's any threat, we can eliminate it. If not, then it can actually lead to some or I would say an experience that would actually bother the functionality of the environment or the organization. How exactly can it be taken care of? There are platforms that we can actually put it through. Doesn't matter. It's going to be Linux, it's going to be Windows, it's going to be Mac. Whatever the device is that the organization prefers, they can have it all. They can have it on these platforms, or I would say these endpoints. Now, knowing one of the alerts that we got, let's suppose the environment is actually being, you know, we have been already told that yes, this is the particular thread that we are able to identify and we already blocked it. But before we block it, we remediate it. We got to know, we get to know that yes, this is where this is coming from. This exactly is the website where it all came from, how exactly it has blocked our endpoints, what attack is going to happen, at what time is it going to happen. So that alert investigation happens when we actually look into that particular uh, website and we remediate it. We remediate, we audit it all, and then exactly when we take an action, once the policy gets applied to that specific endpoint, It tells us that yes, this should be the behavior. This is exactly how it was working. And we also enforce some policies on the devices that this should block it then and there if this particular feature is not working the way we have set up for the devices. So we also have options to set up policies within Carbon Black Cloud, wherein if the device obeys the policy, will be a part of Carbon Black Cloud. If it doesn't, then the endpoint access would actually be blocked so that it will no longer have access to the organization resources. Or if there's anything hampered, then I would say that the employee or the user will not be able to access the organization data until it actually follows the set of rules or policies that we have deployed or enforced on the particular endpoint. So it actually gets enforced on a particular device. Let's consider a MacBook that we are making use of, which is actually, I would say we have downloaded the sensor of Carbon Black Cloud on one of the devices. Once it gets downloaded, after every 4 hours, we'll get to know what the status is. And we also can check it manually if you would like to at any second or any minute. The moment we check the status, we see a thread that yes, this is not working the way we wanted it to. It actually creates a situation where admin would like to run a test manually and get to know that yes, the situation is not as good as he or she expected. At the same time, they can check the policies that they have set up. They can actually assess or audit that what exactly is happening in the background. With the help of enterprise detection and response, it detects the threat. It actually responds to that threat that this is how we're going to block it. After it gets blocked, we can reach to the root cause of that MacBook being compromised and how exactly that link or that particular malware tried to enter the laptop, or I would say try to access the details or the data, or what level of threat or what level of impact has already been done to that device or the organization resource that would tell us that yes, this exactly has happened and this is how we remediated it, and we can run a live query to know more that what exactly is the impact and how far has it gone. Moving forward, a little about how exactly this carbon black cloud functions, wherein also will give a demo of what this carbon black is, how exactly it functions, where exactly it compromises, or we as an organization would be able to take access to it. So I just am gonna share my screen to make that happen. Just a second. All right, this is carbon black cloud console, wherein we'll be able to see the number of vulnerabilities on the virtual machines that we have set up, the endpoint status, how exactly, and the devices that are quarantined, the bypass and active. This is just a way how we can set it up. It's available for all once the portal access would be given. Just a widget of how exactly we can set up critical vulnerabilities and we can take actions. And a little more about the threat reports, that how exactly can we drive it and where will we find it. Talking about the alerts, as I said already, how exactly we remediate, we get to know that yes, this is the behavior analytics engine that tells us if this policy got applied that we actually created, where exactly is this thread going, what exactly will it do. We can search manually for threats or alerts that we were sure which would come into the environment that we are accessing, or I would say any threat that's actually coming in, and we are aware that yes, this is the one that attempted the data user file, the potential or a potential ransomware which must have created the environment of this. I would say this impacted the environment of the particular organization XYZ. Now, knowing this further, there are little actions that you'll be able to take. Right now, you don't have access to the alert ID to it, but you will once you see how exactly it happens. So we can copy the threat ID, we can paste it to the clipboard to know a little about how exactly is it working. We also can add filters to it, knowing about what exactly is happening with that particular analytic that has been done on these specific devices that we have listed, or I would say the processes that are running in the background that actually tells us that yes, this is the attack that's going to take place. Now, this is the flow that I actually talked about. How exactly it travels from one point to another is that a policy that takes place and the policy actually applies on this particular endpoint. This is the service that's running in behind, and we get to know that yes, this is how this should work. Here's the thread that we are able to detect. We click on it, we get to know more. A little about the action that a carbon black cloud helps you to take is to find a total virus, what exactly has happened. This is where audit and remediation comes in picture, where we investigate. We get to know a little more of how exactly we investigate later. But the moment this behavior analytics engine would run, it would inject it, it would help us to get access to the target, that where exactly has it come from, so that the administrator would be able to take, responsibility and would be able to block them before it impacts any other endpoint, because of the sensors who are actually informing, or I would say notifying the organization or the administrators about the threat level, they'll be able to block it. So this is where we'll be able to investigate a little about the events that are happening, or I would say the applications and the devices and the networks that are actually working within the console. This particular is about investigate. We click on it. We get to know a little about the events that are running in the background while this device got compromised. Let's suppose this is the application PowerShell executor.exe that attempted to modify a user document which was there already, but it tries to, uh, I would say, modify a set of program or an application which was already on the device, which is why we try to terminate that process before it can actually, the ransom, it can actually add the ransomware to that specific device or can send malware through it that would turn out to be a threat to the organization who is making use of it. So we terminate the policy, we look into it that how exactly is this action taken, and we get to know that yes, this is exactly how we have blocked it. At what level have we blocked it will also be available. Knowing about that, yes, this is the event, this is exactly where we succeeded, and I would say the number of results that we'll be able to see, notifying that yes, if this PowerShell executor, or I would say the application was blocked, then when exactly was it blocked? What type of application was it? What was modified? And what exactly was not taken care of, which is why we can prevent it from happening in future by knowing the tactics and procedures. It actually tells us the level of threat at the same time and helps us eliminate the threat so that it will no longer impact the existing endpoints and the environment would just be safe. A little about enforcing policies, as I said. So there's also a level that we can set up. Just when we set up a policy, it actually allows us to set it up in a standard mode, in a monitored mode, and a little more modes that we actually have here. We create the policy, we actually set the target. Should it be medium, should it be high? The difference would just be the blockage. The moment the target value would be high for that policy, if that policy would anyhow be detected within the device or the endpoint that the user is making use of, or any of the employee of the organization is making use of, it actually blocks it right away. That's what happens. Now, knowing further, there are core preventions, the permission that needs to be taken, also about the usage of USB devices. If we are going to attach any, we get to know that yes, if it's functioning well, if it's going to block the access to the USB if we set so that yes, the user shouldn't get access to attach any USB device to the endpoint that they're making use of, which is external, and we can block them and terminate that process then and there. So these policies help us function the way we want them to and supports the organization and prevents the user from accessing things that could be harmful. A little about the local scan, that how exactly we enable it. We work upon it, we get to know that yes, the behavior should be normal. I just can set it to aggressive as well. That's another level of scan that actually could happen within the organization. We set up a signature updates of how exactly it's allowing the signature, the frequency, how frequent should it happen, the scan that we are doing already. Also about the servers, we can provide the URLs and we actually can help detect them to know that yes, if it actually would be able to scan them or do their part. Sensors, as I said, we're gonna install it on every device. So the monitoring would happen with the help of the scanner. It actually helps us know what exactly is in the device, where exactly is it, the scan, if running, what exactly has it detected, and what actions could it take while the sensor is in, and can prevent any attacks or ransomware, or I would say the malware, which is actually on the device at the time of attack that could take place. So that's exactly how it helps us stay ahead of attackers. Also about the malware removal and the cloud analysis. So if we check a little about how exactly these standard functions or how exactly these hash values that we are able to see gets detected, it's all by the behavior analytic engine. It automatically detects it and throws us the flow of how exactly it detected that particular hash of that device, or I would say where the file is exactly that consists of the malware that's bothering the environment or the organization and is about to go under attack. So at the same time, when we see these policies that are in function and preventing these malwares to take place, which helps us trust the product more and know a little about it, yes, this is what the organization requires at the same time. Now, this is the inventory that I wanted to reach. Under this, I'll be able to see a few endpoints. Within these endpoints, if I'll mark any, it'll tell me the sensor version. These sensors, as I talked about, can also expire or outdate, I would say. Once it gets outdated, we need to update it time to time so that we can keep the device in sync with our console, knowing that yes, this could be a threat to the device, and we prevent it from happening just by understanding the behavior. And the sensor actually tells us about that particular device that's in function, that if that attack is already there, what exactly is the vulnerability level, the sensor of that specific device, what exactly is happening to that policy that we have applied, considering the level that could be, I would say, the target value, that could be low, that could be medium, that could be high. Any level that we are accessing, we will actually be able to prevent things from happening just by blocking things and protecting one of the endpoints. Let's suppose if I'll mark one, it gives me an option to take action. Okay, it just says query assets, but there'll be a few more options that you'll be able to see, wherein you can quarantine this device then and there if you would like to, which would not impact the other devices of the organization, but will prevent this device from anything, or if there's going to be any impact on any of the other devices that are actually uh, coming in contact with the malware that has been sent to the organization data, or the application that's running in the background that has sent malware is reaching the other devices. So the moment we quarantine that device that's already impacted, the attack just gets stopped and it does not flow any further. So if I'll query this asset, now this is how I can query it. I can add some filters by my own, knowing that this is the device, what was the compliance that I set up, what is the level of threat hunting. Yeah, also about the threat hunting, little, how exactly it functions, how exactly it identifies the threat. In this case, I think it must have identified a few, so we'll be able to see. And the vulnerability management, wherein we discover the risk, how many would they be, the IT hygiene, how exactly is it working. I also talked about the live query and a query that we can run. So if we have any, we'll be able to run it in Query Exchange, wherein we can put that in, we can schedule that query we want it to run after every, I would say, we can set up a time at what time this query should run, and the results can actually be emailed to the administrator or anyone who is actually taking care of this Carbon Black cloud would actually help them know that yes, this exactly is what happened and how exactly can we prevent things from happening in future. So the query has all the results of those devices that are being quarantined, or I would say we have removed them from the console of VMware Carbon Black so that it will no longer be a part of Carbon Black. We also can visit the query exchange portal. It tells us a little about how exactly the query runs. Let's suppose if I approve this static IP, what will it gonna do further? I'll share that query. I can take it down, and yeah, this is how it functions. As I said, filters would also be an option wherein we'll get to know what OS can we select. Not just one, but we have multiple options to add the OS. The Linux and Windows would be in picture in this case. Honestly, most of the attacks that I've noticed is about Windows and Linux. When we get to know that yes, this was the endpoint, there was a policy that was applied which was on high target level. We got to know that yes, this is the executor exe or an application that has been detected on the device. We see the target value, the sensor notifies us that yes, this is what's happening to the device. The device has this policy or this endpoint has this particular application that shouldn't be in picture as per the policies that we have created. It detects that ransomware or the malware that's actually on the device, and it gives us an option to quarantine it and take actions as soon as we can so that it won't bother the organization or the devices of it. Also about the signature status, up to date, out of date, policies we have already set up that are in picture. What are the benefits? What are we doing with the standard policies? Yep. And the sensor group. If I'll take you to the sensor group, okay, I do have access to it. So it has actions, criteria that actually tells me what kind of OS would it be. As it has selected any, that means it applies to every device or endpoint that has the sensor, and it actually tells us about the criteria details of the device that how exactly can be put it. So before we create a sensor group, these are the criteria that we can follow. This exactly how we can set it up, and number of devices that starts with this initial would actually come under the sensor group of I would say HSN group, HZN group. This is another function of knowing how exactly it would work. A little about vulnerabilities that we already talked about. The moment a product detects vulnerabilities, what exactly we do is we not just analyze the level of risk, but we also try to take preventions more than we used to take, so that we understand that how exactly this particular feature would help us or will function upon, so that we'll be able to detect what platform is getting bothered, where exactly we would be able to see the changes, how critical would it be knowing about this particular server or this particular, I would say, the endpoint has been impacted, and we'll be able to take actions before we evaluate what exactly has happened yet, and we can stop that thing that's happening just by knowing the particular details of that thing coming in from, I would say, a malware attack. Even if it takes place, how exactly we detect it, we actually analyze it all. We analyze it through the help of enterprise detection and response. The moment we detect it, we take actions, we stop the attackers who are trying to get ahead of the organization or the administrators, knowing that yes, this is the potential threat of it, and knowing that yes, this could actually impact that particular application or that endpoint. Just when we know if it's already impacted, we block it or we quarantine it so that it will no longer be a part of the organization or will not be able to work upon the organization network, so that it will not flow and will not impact the other endpoints, be it it's Linux, it's Mac OS, or it's Windows OS. So this is how we actually detect the level of vulnerability and we take actions against it and prevent it from happening. Also about a little rules that you can change within Carbon Black Cloud. If you want to set up any admin except you who should be a part of it, then also you'll be allowed to. A super admin who can control it all, who can look into the application programming infrastructure keys. You wanna do a bulk delete of the devices through APIs. You can make that happen, knowing that yes, this is the device that's impacted just by the device ID of it. It'll all get removed and help us know that how exactly is it functioning or what exactly the impact could be on the number of devices that are coming in picture, so that every time you're going to access it or every time you're going to run the live query, it tells us that yes, this is the status, this is the device, it's getting impacted right now, we should take actions against it and we should block it then and there. So every policy that we are going to enforce, every device that has the sensor that actually helps us or help that device to be a part of Carbon Black Cloud notifies that yes, if you want to be ahead of attackers, every moment or every audit that we actually perform on the devices, that audit helps us remediate and take actions before it could bother the organization. And running it live would actually help us know more about what exactly the threat level is. Once we detect the threat level, we move it forward, we actually block it, and after blocking it we know that yes, this is where it came from, so that we exactly can block that particular, I would say, the way how exactly it came in, we can block that path forever, so that that particular attack will no longer be in picture. Now knowing forward, the last thing about the alerts, as I talked, the behavior analytics engine, I'll show you one picture of it so that it'll be more clear of how exactly we remediate it all, if it actually helps us, or if this has an option. Okay, this is the alert triads. So here are more actions, but we'll be able to find few that what's the total virus. So it tells us about how exactly the total virus is being detected, what this particular target is, and how exactly the policy is going to terminate, and the signature verification as well. So let's suppose if we take an example, this was the name of the process, the partial executor exe, how exactly it functioned, and the time when it started, and what technique did we use to eliminate it, what policy has actually helped us eliminate it. So this is how the tactics, techniques and procedures helps us detect a little more about that particular, I would say, issue that's gonna come in, and we get to know the origin of that particular service, that how exactly will we be able to detect, and based on the severity, it actually, or the endpoint actually gets blocked from the network once we quarantine that specific device and we block them from emerging threats or entering into the secure environment, or the, I would say, the internal network. Once it gets blocked, it will not have access to the resources and will not be able to impact other devices, and would be able to prevent it from any other threat that could come in, or I would say any insecurity that could actually reach the door. So this is how Carbon Black Cloud functions. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. Just give me 1 second. And just a little more about widgets. As I said, we can create it, we can modify it as per our requirement. If we want top alerts, we can set them up. If we want any level, we can set it up as per our need. So this is how we'll be able to make it function. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing. All right, now is the time to shoot your questions.
Yeah, I think
Just,
there are a few questions in the box.
yeah,
Actually, if we could go through that.
yeah, I see one of them. Do we have the log for account creation or deletion in this dashboard? I think we actually can not just the log, but as I said about the analytic engine, the analytic engine helps us understand that what exactly is happening. At the same time, it shows us the number of applications or any thread that must have impacted it. So I would say it's kind of a log, but it's an engine that's telling us that yes, this is the exe that was about to impact or was throwing or was actually pushing the ransomware attacks to happen on those endpoints or any device that we actually have in picture, which could be a potential threat to the environment. Can the alert be investigated and provide us info on non-alert information? All right. Yeah, you're very right. It can actually be investigated because the investigation feature, as I said, after we block it or before we block it, we can be ahead of attackers. So the enterprise detection and response works in the background. It keeps sending us alert about any activity that is not usual or any application that hasn't worked before but now is in picture. As I said, the sensors that have been installed on the devices are sending the status. So once the device gets refreshed, and it's not just a journey of 4 hours that it sends the sample, but it's monitoring it 24 hours, or I would say every day. So once the device is under monitoring, we get to know that yes, this was the alert, and how exactly we investigate is by going through the analytic engine that yes, this is the potential threat. The tactics, techniques, and procedures helps us identify what kind of threat would it be. The policy gets applied to that investigation and help us block that particular, I would say, the particular endpoint then and there. It could be any, as I said, it could be Macs, it could be Linux, it could be Windows OS machine that you're making use of, but it can be investigated and the alerts would actually help us block it then and there. This is how it functions.
Right. Do we have more questions coming in?
All right then. So a little about the bundles of Carbon Black Cloud. The difference would be advanced bundle, enterprise bundle. So just letting you know about the features of what enterprise, endpoint enterprise provides. As I said, the four features: audit and remediation, vulnerability management, enterprise EDR, and next level antivirus. I think we are done here. If you have any more questions, I would request you to paste it in chat. And I think Nadia is going to send you the recording of this session, wherein if you have any questions about how exactly the alerts were being monitored, the investigation that we did, the live query that we are going to run through VMware Carbon Black Cloud, you're all feel free to reach out to us via an email or any questions, just send us an email. We'll get in touch. We'll let you know how exactly this technology functions and how it prevents the threat and how exactly can it safeguard your organization. Thank you all for your valuable time. Wish you all a great day.